Welcome to Zoe Crossdressing. People like to say life splits neatly into a before and an after. For me, that split happened under fluorescent lights, in a hospital hallway that smelled like disinfectant, while my mother's footsteps faded away from my bed. Before that moment, I believed I had some control over who I was becoming. After it, I understood how easily control can be taken. My name is Alex. I work night shifts in IT, quiet work, invisible work. I keep systems running, fix problems no one wants to think about, and disappear before anyone has to look at me too closely. During the day, I exist softly, carefully. I learned young that if you divide your life into tidy sections, the mess hurts less. There was work. There was home. And then there was the smallest space of all, the one that didn't belong anywhere. In that space lived a wig tucked inside a shoebox, smudged lipstick samples, a pair of heels hidden behind old textbooks. I didn't start dressing in secret because I wanted attention or rebellion. I did it because, in those quiet hours when the world was asleep, it was the only time my reflection didn't feel like a stranger. The first time was awkward, almost embarrassing. But soon it became necessary. Like breathing deeper after years of shallow air. When I dressed, something tight and painful inside me eased. Not joy exactly, relief. Wholeness. It felt like survival. Mia never knew. She thought she knew me completely. We met 2 years ago in a bookstore, bonding over a worn crime novel and mutual disappointment in bad coffee. She's practical, sharp, warm in a way that steadies me. When things get loud, she calls me Al, and just hearing it makes my chest loosen. We share a small apartment above a bakery, waking every morning to the smell of sugar and bread. Our life is ordinary in the best way, and fragile enough that I was terrified to risk it with the truth. So the shoebox stayed hidden. My mother, however, never needed to look. She has always known how to find the things I tried to bury. Growing up, she taught me how to shrink myself, how to answer without inviting follow-up questions, how to exist without drawing attention. When I chose computer science, she approved with a smile that said useful. But she never looked at me the way she looks at my cousin's daughter while braiding her hair. She's traditional. Strict. Quietly devout. Her love doesn't shout, it conditions. Calm when you obey, stormy when you don't. The morning of the surgery, I woke in a hospital gown feeling absurdly formal, like I was dressed for an ending I hadn't agreed to yet. She had arranged everything. The doctor. The consultation. The paperwork. She called it a remedy, a way to save me from embarrassment, from a future she was certain would destroy me. She said she was protecting me. She used words like mercy and care, as if repeating them would make them true. I kept telling myself there was time. That I could hide better. That secrets, like shoeboxes, could always be shoved somewhere else. But her certainty filled every corner of the room. There were forms. Signatures. Her steady voice answering questions for me. When I signed, the pen felt heavier than it should have, like it was pressing a shape into my life that would never fully fade. I remember wondering whether I'd make it to dinner with Mia next week, whether there was still time left to be the version of myself she knew. When everything tightens around you, your mind drifts to the smallest, strangest questions. In the pre-op room, the lights felt invasive, almost accusatory. A daytime talk show murmured from a wall-mounted TV, cheerful and irrelevant. A nurse tucked a blanket beneath my legs and ran through routine questions like she was checking boxes on a list. My hands shook as I flattened the fabric. These hands, steady enough to rebuild networks at 3 in the morning, strong enough to fix what others break, wouldn't stop trembling. I pictured Mia discovering the lipstick I'd once forgotten at the bottom of the shower bag. I imagined her pausing, then asking me about it in that careful, gentle tone she saves for moments that matter. I rehearsed 100 versions of the truth, each one trimmed down, softened, made smaller so it wouldn't push her away. Shame doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, convincing you to mute yourself just enough to survive. I had lived in that whisper for years. When my mother spoke again, her words were calm, almost casual. This will help you later. She treated the future like a bargaining chip, and I let the present collapse into it without a fight. When I woke up, the air tasted sharp and chemical. Pain arrived slowly, not unbearable, just persistent, like an irritation you couldn't scratch. My thoughts floated, disconnected. Mia's laugh. The warm smell of baked bread from downstairs. My mother's fingers wrapped tightly around my arm. They said the anesthesia was fading. They told me to sleep. My mother stayed close, hovering with purpose. I could read her expression easily, relief written cleanly across it. And beneath that, something sharper. Satisfaction. As if a problem had finally been solved. I wanted to tell her not to frame this as kindness. Not to speak like something had been gifted instead of taken. I wanted to beg the nurse to let me go home, to disappear beneath my old quilt, to exist quietly until this day blurred into something unreal. Instead, I caught my reflection warped in the plastic of the 4 bag and felt unfamiliarity slide through me, cold and undeniable. My face looked swollen, distant, like someone else's. The shoebox under my bed felt unreachable, like it belonged to another lifetime. Mia arrived that evening. She looked exhausted but kind, the way she always does when she's worried. She brought snacks from the bakery and that soft, unintentional pity that hurts more than anger. She reached for my hand, hesitated, then held it, testing, as though she was memorizing me again from scratch. She kissed my forehead and asked how I was feeling. I answered with careful half-truths. I told her the procedure went smoothly. She smiled and said we'd laugh about it someday. She didn't notice my mother watching her. Didn't see the faint smile that lingered, private and knowing. There's a particular cruelty in being loved by someone who believes they are rescuing you, when all they are really doing is erasing you. After Mia left, because she had work in the morning, because she said she would, because she smiled and meant it, I stayed awake, cataloging the quiet compromises that had carried me here. None of them felt dramatic on their own. Together, they formed a trail I couldn't unsee. I thought about the shoebox under the bed, about wigs and fabric and the way a different silhouette could unlock versions of myself I hadn't known how to name. I remembered the first time I curled my hair in secret, heart racing, hands clumsy, and the sudden clarity that followed, like finally hearing my own name spoken correctly after years of mispronunciation. The future felt less like a promise and more like a threat. What happens when private experiments collide with stamped forms and final decisions made by strangers in sterile rooms? What happens when truth meets love without padding or edits? If I told Mia everything, would she still reach for me the same way? Or would our carefully built life give way all at once, fragile as stacked cards? Morning arrived smelling like cinnamon. The bakery below us was already alive, ovens humming, the world continuing without hesitation. I moved slowly through the apartment, touching familiar corners as if I were memorizing them. Clothes draped over a chair. The shoebox half visible beneath the bed, patient and waiting. My phone vibrated, small interruptions from a life that didn't yet know it was changing. A joke from a friend. A message from Mia, don't worry. Love you. It felt like comfort and deception braided together. This is where my story really starts. Not in the hospital hallway or beneath the glare of surgical lights, but here, in the stillness between what has already happened and what hasn't yet arrived. I speak as someone who has worn more than one version of himself and is still learning how to breathe inside them. I'll tell you about the details that linger, the slide of fabric against skin, the echo of my mother's shoes in the hall, the moment I understood that going backward would cost me more than moving forward ever could. You'll see me make choices, and you'll see choices made for me. You'll watch secrets turn into leverage and love stretch itself into unfamiliar forms. You'll meet me when the apartment is dark and there's nothing left but my breath and my thoughts. And before I continue, I ask only this: pay attention and be kind. Because what follows is shaped by fear and courage in equal measure, by decisions born of panic and hope alike. This is only the beginning. What comes next is the slow tightening, the moment when fear stops being a background noise and starts applying pressure, nudging me toward paths I never planned to take. The morning after the surgery, the world carried on as if nothing had shifted. Birds bickered along the balcony railing. Cars murmured below. Sunlight slipped through the curtains with the same casual confidence it always had. Everything looked familiar. None of it felt right. My body had changed, though not in ways anyone else could see yet. It was the kind of change that announces itself quietly, like the first drop of rain before the sky breaks open. There was a hollow inside me, an absence that spoke louder than discomfort or ache ever could. My mother stayed for 3 days. She occupied my apartment with practiced ease, as though reclaiming territory. She reorganized shelves, discarded clothes she deemed impractical, and left pamphlets scattered across the table, glossy promises of renewal from her church, smiling faces offering reinvention as salvation. She smiled constantly, the way people do when they're reassuring themselves more than anyone else. "You'll understand eventually, Alex," she said one afternoon, wiping crumbs from the counter. "This will change how you see everything." It sounded like both a blessing and a sentence. When she finally left, the quiet pressed in immediately. Her perfume lingered in the air, sweet, floral, overwhelming. Relief should have followed her out the door. Instead, I felt stripped, as though something essential had been carried away with her coat. My hands shook when I slid them beneath the bed. The shoebox came out slowly, like something fragile being unearthed. It had always been my refuge, the place where the truest version of me waited patiently. Opening it now made my chest tighten. Inside were fragments of a life I no longer knew how to reach. A honey blonde wig. Several lipsticks worn down unevenly. A pearl necklace bought on impulse. A neatly folded dress patterned with soft flowers. My fingers brushed the fabric, and memory surged forward, how wearing it once made me feel weightless, radiant, aligned in a way language fails to capture. It had never been just clothing. It had been permission. Now it frightened me. I lifted my gaze toward the mirror beside the closet, unsure whether I was ready to meet whoever was waiting there. The person in the mirror looked familiar, almost convincingly so. But something wasn't right. My face seemed subtly altered, the lines softened, my jaw less defined. My lips were swollen, fuller in a way that felt unnatural. I told myself it was the anesthesia, residual swelling, nothing more. Still, my throat tightened. "What did you do to me?" I murmured to the glass. I grabbed the stack of hospital papers from the table and began flipping through them. Page after page of dense terminology, clinical phrases, official stamps. My name appeared where it was supposed to, my signature looping confidently across the forms. I barely remembered holding the pen. One phrase snagged my attention: reconstructive hormonal alignment procedure. My mother had dismissed it as minimal. Routine. Harmless. But the next lines made my stomach turn. Ongoing hormonal supplementation required to sustain results. I dropped the papers onto the table. This wasn't small. It wasn't reversible. And in that moment, something cracked open inside me, something I had kept tightly sealed for years. Anger. Not loud or explosive, but hot and steady, spreading through me like fire under glass. I didn't want to hear Mia's voice. Didn't want her softness, her concern, the warmth I felt unworthy of. But my phone buzzed anyway. "Feeling any better today, babe?" I stared at the message. She had no idea. She thought this had been routine, stress-related, maybe corrective, something simple. My mother had made sure of that. And I had let her. I typed, "Yeah. Getting there. Just tired." Deleted it. Typed again. "Better. Can we talk tonight?" She replied with a heart. Nothing more. Nothing suspicious. Just trust. Sleep refused to come. Every shift of my body reminded me something was wrong. The strange softness of my skin, the persistent ache in my chest, the sense that my own body was quietly rewriting itself without permission. When I finally drifted off, my dreams were full of breaking glass and distorted reflections, faces that looked like mine but weren't. Mia arrived that evening carrying soup, her laptop, and that easy warmth she always brought with her, like daylight. She hovered, fluffed pillows, teased me gently. "You were a mess when they rolled you out," she said, smiling. Mumbling like crazy. "Passwords, nonsense stuff." I smiled weakly. "And lipstick," she added with a laugh. "You kept saying, 'Don't lose the lipstick.' Everyone thought you were totally out of it." My body went cold. "Lipstick?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. She nodded, still amused. "Yeah. Probably just anesthesia nonsense, right?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just drugs talking." She didn't argue. But something in her expression shifted. Not alarm, curiosity. Her eyes stayed on me a beat longer than usual. Later, as she worked beside me, fingers tapping at her keyboard, I caught her glancing toward the closet. Toward the place beneath it. Toward where the shoebox used to be. My pulse spiked. Something had changed, not just in my body, but in the space between us. And for the first time, I realized the secret I thought I controlled might already be slipping out of my hands. It was gone. Earlier that day, I'd left the box half slid from beneath the bed, careless in a way I rarely allowed myself to be. Now the bedspread lay smooth, undisturbed. Empty space stared back at me. "Mia," I said slowly, my voice barely holding together. She looked up from her laptop. "Yeah? Did you move something from under the bed?" Her brow creased. "What are you talking about?" "The box," I said. "There was a box." She hesitated, then nodded. "Oh. That." My chest tightened. "Your mom took it this morning. She said it was just old stuff you didn't need anymore. I figured you'd asked her to tidy up." The room seemed to drain of sound. "She took it?" I whispered. "Alex, relax," she said gently. "What was even in it?" I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. The truth lodged itself in my throat, sharp and immovable. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I sank back down, pulse racing. "Just old things," I said. "Doesn't matter." But it mattered more than anything. That box held fragments of a life no one else knew. It was proof. It was comfort. It was the version of myself I returned to when the rest of the world felt too narrow. And now my mother had it, every trace I'd carefully hidden. Sleep didn't come that night. I kept picturing her in my apartment, wearing that calm, certain smile, lifting the box as if she were doing me a favor. Maybe she believed she was rescuing me. Maybe she thought removing the evidence would make the truth disappear. But erasing objects doesn't erase people. Something inside me stirred, the same quiet defiance that once reached for lipstick in the dark, that once chose softness in a world that demanded hardness. It wasn't gone. Just buried. If she wanted to erase me, she would have to work harder than that. The days that followed felt blurred, like moving through mist. The apartment looked unchanged, but it felt different, heavier, subdued, as if my secret had soaked into the walls. Mia was gentle, attentive, patient. Too patient. I could see questions forming behind her eyes, waiting for the right moment. I started avoiding mirrors. At first, it was intentional, turning my face away in the bathroom, shaving with the lights dimmed. But reflections have a way of finding you anyway. The dark glass of the microwave. My phone screen when it went black. The windows after sunset. Each one returned an image I barely recognized. My features had softened further. My jaw looked smoother, my frame leaner. Muscle I'd built without thinking seemed to be fading. It wasn't dramatic, No one else would have noticed, but I felt it in my body every morning, unmistakable. I tried to explain it away. Post-surgery fatigue. Medication. Stress. But the paperwork had said hormonal adjustment. Whatever that meant, it hadn't stopped. By the third morning, denial wasn't an option. When I pulled on my usual t-shirt, it hung differently, clinging in places it never had before. My chest felt tender, overly sensitive. The fabric made my skin prickle. I froze. Slowly, I lifted the hem of my shirt, hands shaking. The sight beneath stole my breath. There was a faint swelling, subtle, but undeniably there. New. Real. My heart slammed against my ribs as the room tilted. I staggered into the bathroom and stared into the mirror. The reflection stared back, wide-eyed, disbelieving, already changing. And for the first time, I understood, whatever my mother had started, my body was continuing on its own. It was me. And yet, not me. Softer. Gentler. The sharp edges I knew were gone, replaced by subtle curves I didn't recognize as mine. Panic coiled in my chest, tight and cold. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. I needed answers. I had to know. I called the hospital. The voice on the other end was polite, calm, rehearsed. Detached. Yes, Mr. Alvarez. I see your file. Standard postoperative hormonal balancing, she said. Standard? My voice cracked. What does that mean? What did you do to me? Sir, she replied carefully, your mother signed the supplemental consent form. Hormonal alignment is part of the long-term correction process. It's all outlined in the documentation. I nearly dropped the phone. You're saying this change is permanent? Silence followed. Then, quietly, she added, you'll need to follow up with your physician. Full stabilization may take several months. I hung up before she could continue. Months. My knees gave way beneath me. I sank to the floor, staring at the cold bathroom tiles, trying not to scream. What had she done? When Mia came home that evening, I pretended to be asleep. She moved around carefully, humming under her breath. Keys clinked softly on the table. She leaned over, brushed a lock of hair from my forehead, kissed me goodnight. For the first time, I didn't feel like her boyfriend. I felt like a stranger inhabiting the shell of the person she thought she knew. Morning arrived heavy with dread. Curiosity fought panic in equal measure. I opened my laptop and typed the phrase from the files, reconstructive hormonal alignment procedure. The results were clinical, cold, and terrifying, endocrine suppression, estrogen induction, secondary sexual adaptation. Translation: my body was actively being feminized. My fingers froze above the keyboard. Air caught in my throat. Then the door opened. Hey, sleepyhead, Mia's voice, light and cheerful, broke into my spiraling thoughts. You didn't answer my texts. I slammed the laptop shut. Sorry, just reading. She tilted her head, concern softening her features. You okay? You've been distant lately. My pulse slammed. Just tired. Healing takes time. She stepped closer, studying my face. You look different. My stomach dropped. Different how? Not much, she said, smiling. Just softer. Calmer. Peaceful. Kind of beautiful, actually. Her words weren't cruel, but they hit me like a blow. Beautiful. Me? I forced a laugh. Guess the hospital gave me a glow-up, I muttered. She laughed too, brushing it off, but her gaze lingered, studying me in a way that made my chest tighten. She reached out, thumb brushing lightly along my jaw. I mean it, she said softly. You look calm. Like you're finally yourself. If only she knew. Later, after she showered, I stood alone in front of the mirror again. fingers tracing my face, my hair, the subtle beginnings of curves shaping my body. I realized I was no longer entirely myself. And yet, this was still me. Somehow. And for one terrifying second, I realized I didn't despise what I saw. That truth struck harder than any incision ever could. Because somewhere beneath the panic and shock, a quiet thought surfaced, uninvited, undeniable. This feels familiar. This feels like something you once reached for. I gripped the edge of the sink, knuckles white, shaking my head. No, I whispered. Not this way. But the thought didn't retreat. It followed me into sleep and lingered when I woke. It sat beside me while I laughed with Mia, while I pretended everything was unchanged. She noticed the subtle shifts before I did, the way my voice lost some of its edge, the way I kept borrowing her oversized sweaters instead of pulling on my own clothes. She teased me once, lighthearted. Since when did you start stealing my look? I laughed along, shrugged it off. Inside, something split open. Because it wasn't a joke to me. It felt like gravity. A week later, an envelope arrived from the hospital. Inside, a follow-up plan. Prescriptions. Estrogen patches. Hormone stabilizers. And at the bottom of the page, written neatly and confidently, my mother's signature. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the paperwork, hands unsteady. When Mia walked in, she stopped short. Alex, what's wrong? I looked up at her, exhausted. Do you think a person can change without choosing to? She blinked, confused. What are you talking about? I mean, I said slowly, if something happens to you, something you didn't ask for, does that make you someone else? Concern crossed her face as she stepped closer. You're freaking me out. I wanted to tell her everything. About the surgery. About my mother. About the way my body no longer felt like neutral ground. But fear closed around my chest. It's nothing, I said instead. Just medication stuff. She didn't believe me. I could see it immediately. Her gaze dropped to my wrist, where the hospital band still clung, faded but readable. Why does this say endocrine procedure? She asked quietly. My heart stalled. She looked up at me, really looked. Alex, what did they do to you? And just like that, the truth I'd been holding together with silence began to crumble. There's a kind of quiet that isn't empty, a living silence, heavy and breathing, filled with everything no one is saying. That silence settled between us after her question. I tried to speak. Words unraveled before they could leave my mouth. Every instinct screamed to deflect, to disappear. Nothing, I said weakly. It was just hormone-related. My mom thought it would help with stress. Mia's expression hardened, not angry, but alert. That's not something you casually do, Alex. What are you hiding from me? I looked away. She stepped closer, voice shaking. You barely eat. You sleep all day. You're changing, and you won't let me in. Something inside me snapped. I don't even know what the truth is, I said, louder than I meant to. They didn't explain it. She didn't explain it. Mia froze. Who? My mother. The words spilled out now, messy and fast. She signed papers. She set it all up. The surgery. The hormones. Everything. Her face drained of color. Are you telling me she did this without your consent? I nodded, tears burning. She said she was fixing me. Fixing you? Mia repeated, stunned. Fixing you for what? I couldn't lift my head. Shame pressed down like weight. For who I am, I said softly. She didn't understand yet, but she was starting to. Her face softened, confusion giving way to dawning realization, slow and inevitable, like sunlight spilling across a dark room. Alex, she breathed, voice trembling. Does this have anything to do with the crossdressing? The words hit me like ice. Not wrong, just real. Too real. I'd never said it aloud to her before, not once. Her eyes were wide, but not angry, not disgusted. They were full of shock, hurt, and a quiet sadness. You never told me, she whispered. I couldn't, I admitted. I was scared I'd lose you. She sank into the chair opposite me, hands tightly clasped, trying to make sense of everything. So, your mom knew, I said bitterly. She always knew. Just waited for the moment she thought was right. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The ticking clock seemed deafening, each second carving the silence into jagged shards. Finally, Mia looked up. Alex, what exactly did they do? I hesitated, then pushed the hospital papers toward her. She read slowly, lips parting with every line. When she reached the bottom, her hands trembled. Oh my God, she whispered, voice breaking. Alex, this says you're on permanent hormonal therapy. You can't just stop it. It'll change everything. I know, I said quietly. Her gaze met mine, brimming with tears. She turned you into someone else. No, I said softly, almost to myself. She didn't make me someone else. She made me someone I was too afraid to be. And that truth, buried beneath layers of fear and betrayal, frightened me most of all. Somewhere deep inside, a dangerous part of me, small, defiant, didn't hate what was happening. Mia stood abruptly, pacing the floor. We have to fix this. We'll go to another doctor. We'll talk to a lawyer. She can't just. I interrupted, voice low. What if I don't want to fix it? She froze. What? I don't mean this way, I said quickly. Not like she did it. Not without choice. But part of me feels like this might be who I was always supposed to be. The room was thick with our uneven breathing, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us. Alex, she whispered, voice shaking. Are you saying you want this? I don't know what I want, I admitted. All I know is, when I look in the mirror, I'm scared. But I'm not disgusted. I feel like I'm meeting myself for the first time. Her expression broke into a storm of love, confusion, and heartbreak. She stepped closer and took my hand, holding it like she could steady both of us. You should have trusted me, she said softly. We could have faced this together. I was afraid, I whispered, voice cracking. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd look at me and not see the man you fell in love with. She squeezed my hand. You're still you, she said firmly. Then, after a pause, she added, almost to herself, at least. I think you are. Tears blurred my vision. I couldn't tell if Mia's words were meant to comfort me, or to say goodbye. For days afterward, our apartment fell into a fragile quiet. We moved through routines like actors on a stage, breakfast, small talk, the hum of the TV, pretending the world hadn't cracked open beneath us. But the silence now was different. Not avoidance. Something sharper. Fear of what was coming next. One night, brushing my teeth, I froze in front of the mirror. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. My Adam's apple had shrunk. My shoulders seemed narrower, less rigid. Even my hairline looked softer. The transformation wasn't slowing. It was speeding up. I leaned closer, pulse hammering. The face staring back wasn't entirely mine anymore. My voice, too, had begun to betray me, lighter, quieter, carrying a tone I barely recognized. Mia appeared in the doorway, catching the change at the same moment I did. Her eyes widened. Alex, she breathed. I trembled. It's happening faster now. She didn't speak. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, pressing me so close I thought I might shatter. I'm here, she whispered. We'll figure it out. I promise. I buried my face in her shoulder, and a dark thought clawed its way into my mind. What if, by the time we figured this out, the person left standing wasn't me at all? Morning arrived sharp and bright. Sunlight cut across the room in jagged lines, and I faced the mirror again, bracing for the reflection I'd encounter. It was undeniable. My jaw had softened further. My chest showed the faintest curve. My body moved with a rhythm that felt new. I traced my face with trembling fingers, and the truth hit me like ice. This reflection no longer belonged entirely to Alex. A mix of fear and something darker surged inside me. Excitement. A thrill. The dangerous allure of becoming someone forbidden and beautiful. My chest tightened, stomach fluttered. Mia stepped in behind me, peering over my shoulder. Her eyes widened, disbelief and awe mingling. "Alex, you look different," she whispered, voice low, almost trembling. "Yes," I breathed, barely recognizing the sound. "I feel different too." Her hands hovered near mine, uncertain. I don't know what to do." "Me neither," I admitted, voice cracking. "I don't know if this is my choice, or hers." The truth hit like a physical blow. My mother's plan had begun, but part of me had already embraced it before I could stop myself. Later, when Mia left for work, I stood alone before the mirror again. The dress I'd chosen the night before clung differently, molding to curves I'd never had. It made me feel exposed, and alive in a way that was almost terrifying. The heels I slipped onto my feet made my legs ache, but they also made me taller, poised, unmistakably feminine. I couldn't tear my eyes away. Then there was a knock at the door. A neighbor? Or my mother? My heart slammed against my ribs, and I froze. "Alex, you in there?" Mia's voice. Or was it someone else? My breath caught, stuck somewhere between fear and anticipation. I didn't have time to change. The knock at the door froze me mid-breath. I cracked it open, and it wasn't a neighbor or Mia. It was Mom. Her smile hit me like a blade, calm, victorious, impossibly certain. The same smile that had haunted my dreams for weeks. "Hello, darling," she said, stepping inside before I could protest. "I came to see how my little experiment is progressing." "Mom," my voice trembled, swallowed by panic. "You can't just," I started, but she ignored me. Her eyes roamed over me like a scientist inspecting her creation, calm, clinical, unflinching. "Oh, I can," she said softly, almost tenderly. "You look lovely, Alex. So much more yourself than ever before." I wanted to scream. Tear the dress from my body. Rip the heels off and run. Hide everything she had manipulated, everything she had taken. But I couldn't. My legs and voice refused to obey me. Fear, humiliation, and a strange, undeniable pride rooted me to the spot. Mom circled me slowly, hands gesturing as if illustrating a painting only she could see. "Mia doesn't understand, but I do. I knew this was who you were meant to be. I just had to show you, and the world." I shook my head, trembling. "No, this isn't me." Her smile didn't falter. "It is you. One day, you'll thank me." I stepped back, chest tight, air sharp in my lungs. The truth pressed down. She had taken control of my body, my secret, my identity. And Mia. Mia didn't know what to think anymore. By evening, I found her pacing in the living room, eyes red, shoulders tense. "Alex," she began, voice raw. "Your mom?" I said, avoiding her gaze. Her hands flew to her face. She knows? She's taking control of everything." "Alex, you're still you, right? You're still you?" I swallowed hard. I don't know." Her knees buckled as she sank to the floor, staring at me, desperate. "I can't help you if you don't fight this." "I am fighting," I said, voice cracking. "I am, but part of me feels alive in a way I've never felt before." She flinched, mouth opening, words trapped, as if she wanted to argue but couldn't. I turned and ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, and collapsed onto the bed. I hugged the pillows, trying to contain the storm inside me, fear, shame, longing, and something dangerous, a heady curiosity about who I was becoming. The mirror across the room reflected someone I barely recognized. Someone fragile, beautiful, and terrifying. My own eyes stared back, wide and uncertain. Outside, the world carried on, oblivious. Inside, everything had shifted. Trust between Mia, Mom, and me was fractured. My body was no longer entirely mine. My mind became a battlefield of resistance and surrender. And I realized this was only the beginning. Every glance in the mirror, every step in heels, every brush of soft fabric reminded me, my transformation wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological, unstoppable. Soon, everyone, Mia, Mom, the world, would have to reckon with the new me. By the 5th day, the changes were undeniable. My body no longer belonged to the Alex I had known. Curves were sharper, the softness pronounced, my voice carrying a subtle, uncontrollable lilt. Every movement felt different, hips swaying, shoulders narrowing, weight shifting with each step in heels. I was becoming someone else entirely, and every reflection, every mirror reminded me of it. Mia had stopped asking directly. She watched me quietly now, hands hovering just short of touch, her eyes full of worry, heartbreak, and a love I feared might not recognize me anymore. I could see the war playing out in her eyes. She still loved me, but she was terrified of the person I was becoming. And I couldn't pretend anymore. My body had stopped cooperating with denial. The oversized sweaters no longer hid anything. Jeans curved where they never had before. And the dresses my mother had so casually insisted were more comfortable did more than change how I looked, they changed how I felt inside them. Every soft fabric against my skin stirred something deep and dangerous. A quiet recognition. A sense of self I had buried for years. That evening, the tension finally snapped. Mia was in the kitchen, the sound of cooking filling the apartment, while I stood frozen in the living room, staring at the mirror above the couch. The reflection looking back at me was impossible to deny. Familiar eyes. An unfamiliar form. Alex. Her voice pulled me back. I turned to see her watching me, hands clenched. "You're changing so fast," she said softly. "I don't know if I can keep up." My chest tightened. "I don't know if I can stop it." She stepped closer, hands shaking as she reached for me. "We'll figure it out. Together. You're still you." A bitter laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. Am I? Look at me. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I turned back to the mirror. My mom didn't just take my body. She took my choices. My future. Mia's eyes filled with tears. "She's manipulating you. But you're not powerless. You still matter. You still have a voice." I shook my head slowly. It's already too late. It's not just physical. It's in my head now. In my thoughts. I feel alive like this, and I hate that I do. And I hate that I don't hate it. The words hung between us, heavy and final. I wasn't just pretending anymore. I wasn't a man wearing borrowed clothes. I was becoming someone else entirely, and the closer I came to admitting it, the tighter the air felt in my lungs. By morning, the changes had accelerated. Even the way I moved felt wrong and right at the same time, lighter, smoother, unfamiliar. My skin felt different. My hair softer. My body impossible to ignore. Mia noticed everything, even when she tried not to. She reached for me, then hesitated, fear flickering across her face like a reflection she didn't want to see. When my mother called that afternoon, her voice carried the same quiet certainty. "How are you feeling, my darling?" "Alive," I said flatly. "But not free." Her laugh was soft, almost pleased. You'll understand one day. I'm helping you become yourself. Is this really me? I asked, my voice shaking. Or just who you wanted me to be? You'll see, she replied, and the line went dead. I sat there, staring at my phone, then at the mirror, then at the body I no longer recognized. Every part of me screamed to resist, yet another part ached to surrender. When Mia came home and found me curled on the couch, shaking, she knelt beside me. Alex, she whispered. Talk to me. I don't know what to say, I admitted. I'm changing, and I don't know who I'll be when it's over. I'm scared you won't see me anymore. Scared I won't see myself. Scared my mother has already won. She pulled me into her arms, holding me tightly, but even there, I felt the distance growing. Her warmth couldn't reach the storm tearing through me. Across the room, the mirror watched silently, reflecting someone who looked like me, and yet wasn't. A stranger stared back at me through my own eyes. My past seemed to dissolve with every heartbeat, my identity slipping further out of reach. That night, I could no longer resist the pull. I crept into the bedroom, rifled through the remnants of the hidden shoebox Mom hadn't discovered, and dressed carefully in a new outfit. Heels, wig, dress, every piece reshaping me entirely. I froze in front of the mirror, trembling. My pulse thundered. My lips curved into a faint, alien smile. The thrill was sharp, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. Then, the click of the door unlocking. Mom. Panic surged. I tried to rip off the wig, kick off the heels, shove the dress back into the closet, but it was too late. She was there, framed in the doorway, calm, triumphant, unwavering. You've embraced it, she said softly, her eyes gleaming. Good. This is who you're meant to be. I opened my mouth to scream, to argue, to fight, but my body refused. Thrill and terror wrestled inside me, leaving me paralyzed. My reflection was both stranger and seductively familiar, and I couldn't look away. Behind her, Mia appeared, eyes wide in shock. Alex, she whispered. I could only shake, caught between fear, desire, and the overwhelming truth. My life wasn't mine anymore. Every choice had been stolen, every boundary crossed, and yet, a small, forbidden part of me thrilled at the transformation, at the new possibilities unfolding. The tipping point had arrived. Nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, the apartment felt claustrophobic, as if the walls themselves pressed in. Every mirror, every shadow reminded me of the Alex Mom had engineered, and of the version of myself I was only beginning to recognize. Mia moved silently in the kitchen, her presence heavy with unspoken questions. I could see the fear in her eyes, the uncertainty, the way her gaze kept flicking to my chest, my curves, my softened jawline. I wanted to speak, to tell her everything, but the words tangled in my throat. I walked past her, heels clicking sharply against the floor, each step a drumbeat of warning, a declaration I didn't fully understand myself. Later that afternoon, Mom arrived without knocking, she never did anymore. She entered as though it were her right, expecting obedience. And in a way, I complied. My body and mind had already betrayed me. You look perfect, she said, scanning me like an artist admiring a finished painting. Absolutely perfect. I wanted to hate her. Needed to hate her. But my reflection, soft skin, gentle curves, long hair, made something stir inside me. Part of me, against my will, loved it. And that realization made my chest ache and my hands shake. Mia stepped forward, fury and fear fighting across her face. Stop it, Mom. You can't control him. He's not an experiment. Mom smiled, unshaken. Oh, Mia, he isn't a he anymore. He's finally becoming who he was always meant to be. I flinched. Her words left no illusion, no pretense that this was optional. Every hormone, every procedure, every dress, every wig, each step had led here. And now she claimed it as her triumph. Alex, talk to me, Mia pleaded, voice cracking. Is this what you want, or is she forcing you? I opened my mouth, but no words came. How could I explain the storm raging inside me? Fear and thrill, betrayal and awakening, desire and panic, all colliding at once. Mom stepped closer, her voice calm but unyielding. She's discovering herself, Alex. And Mia, you need to accept it. This is who she is now. The words cut through me like ice. My name felt like it was slipping away, fading under the weight of the identity Mom had molded. For the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to resist. Mia's hand found my arm, light, trembling, desperate. Alex, don't let her take you. Don't let this change define you. You're still you. I know you are. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to fight. But my body betrayed me. Swaying slightly in the dress, curves subtly pronounced, hair soft, lips gleaming, I barely recognized myself. The reflection in the mirror was a stranger and yet intimately mine, feminine yet undeniably me. Mom laughed quietly, the sound curling in my chest like smoke. Look at her, she said, triumph glittering in her eyes. The transformation is complete. She's thriving. Isn't that beautiful? Her words were knives. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part longed to sink into it, to feel the thrill of the identity she described, the soft, forbidden rush of being seen for the first time. Mia's face twisted, fear and panic warring with love. I can't, she stammered. Alex, you have to fight her. You have to fight for yourself. I wanted to. I tried. But the pull of the mirror, the thrill of my new body, the subtle allure of curves, heels, delicate hands, they held me in place, suspended between terror and desire. Mom reached out, fingers brushing my cheek, gentle but unyielding. You're ready, she whispered. Ready for the world to see you. Ready to embrace who you truly are. I closed my eyes, straining to reclaim some fragment of the Alex I knew. But when I opened them, my reflection smiled back. Seductive, inviting, terrifying. Mia's hands gripped mine, pleading. Please, Alex, don't let her win. And in that instant, the battle inside me erupted. My body screamed one truth, my mind another. Fear and longing collided in a flash of adrenaline and raw emotion. The room was silent except for our breathing, each second stretching into eternity, each heartbeat pounding like a drum. Every glance at the mirror amplified the tension. Mom stepped back, satisfied, watching me unravel and reform at once. It's time, she said softly, a statement that felt like a command. I looked at Mia, panic and desire warring in my eyes. I don't know if I can fight her, or myself. Her hands tightened around mine. Then fight me, Alex, she said, voice low and desperate, anchoring me to the only tether left in the storm. Fight for us. Fight for who you really are, not the version she wants. Her words sparked something deep inside me, a flicker of rebellion, a thread of defiance against the current pulling me under. But then my phone buzzed. Mom. Time for the final step. Don't disappoint me. My chest froze. The final step. It hovered over me like a guillotine. Every choice, every hesitation, every second of fear had been building toward this. I could feel the walls closing in. My reflection in the mirror was almost mocking, grinning with curves and softness I wasn't sure I could resist, or wanted to. Mia paced behind me, anxiety radiating in sharp bursts. What does she mean by that? I don't know, I whispered, voice trembling. And I'm scared to find out. Every instinct screamed, run, strip it all off, claw back the body I knew. But another, stranger instinct whispered, see it through. See what you could become. Before I could decide, Mom arrived. No knock. Never a knock anymore. She filled the room like a shadow, calm, controlled, her presence swallowing space. Ready, darling, she asked, eyes glittering with triumph. My body stiffened, every muscle coiled. Mia stepped in front of me, fists trembling at her sides. Alex doesn't have to do this. You can't force him. Mom's smile was soft, almost tender, but it chilled me. I'm not forcing her. She's choosing. She just doesn't know it yet. The words cut like knives. Mom had always been a master at twisting control into freedom, dominance into guidance. You can fight this. Say no, Mia pleaded, tears welling. I turned toward the mirror. The stranger that stared back wasn't just a reflection, it was daring me. Curves, soft lips, hair flowing like silk, every line of my body radiating confidence I had never known. I seemed alive, challenging me not to resist. Alex, Mom said softly, leaning closer, her fingers brushing my cheek. Look at yourself. Truly look. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to her. Who do you see? Panic tangled with desire. I wanted to scream, to reclaim the life I had known. But a terrifying, undeniable part of me wanted to step fully into this new self, to see what it meant to exist in this body, this identity. I don't know, I whispered. Mom's smile widened. Good. That's the beginning. Hesitation makes it yours. Uncertainty makes the transformation real. Mia's face fell, desperation cracking her voice. Alex, don't listen to her. You're still you. But the mirror told a different story. Every curve, every softened line, every subtle movement I had unconsciously adopted screamed that the old Alex was fading. This reflection wasn't me anymore, it was someone new, someone she had been shaping. Mom leaned closer, her hand lingering along my cheek. It's time. No more hiding. No more pretending. Embrace her fully. A knock sounded at the door, faint, hesitant, urgent. We all froze. Even Mom's shadow of control faltered for a heartbeat. I peeked through the crack. The neighbor stood there, holding a package. For a brief second, I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross Mom's face. She hadn't expected anyone else. And in that pause, I realized, maybe the world wasn't entirely hers to control. I seized the moment. I can't do this. Not now, I whispered, adrenaline flaring through every vein. Mom's hand tightened on my shoulder, but it was too late. I bolted past her, past Mia, heart hammering like a drum in my chest. I snatched the package, hurled it into a corner, and slammed the bedroom door behind me. Breath ragged, I sank to the floor and stared at the mirror. The stranger reflected back at me, confident, expectant, impossible. And I was trembling, torn. My mind screamed, run. My body screamed, stay. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom. Resistance is part of the process. Embrace it or regret it. The words coiled around my chest, squeezing. There was no easy choice. Resistance or surrender. Both terrifying. Mia appeared at the doorway, her voice soft but urgent. Alex, let me in. Let me help you. I swallowed hard, the weight of confession pressing down. I don't know who I am anymore. Her hands reached for mine, firm but gentle. Then find yourself, with me. Not her. Not your mother. You. The tension in the room snapped. My reflection was no longer just a stranger. It was the sum of everything Mom had orchestrated, everything I had feared and secretly desired. And now it demanded a choice. Do I surrender to this transformation, this body and identity I'd been pushed into, or fight for the Alex I thought I knew? Every heartbeat, every tremor, every ragged breath was a countdown. The room was a battlefield. Mom on one side, calm and commanding, a force of inevitability. Mia on the other, fierce, grounded, human. And in the center, me, staring at a reflection that no longer belonged entirely to Alex. Curves, softened features, subtle sway in posture, all screaming that the old me was fading. Mom's voice cut through the silence, low and triumphant. It's time, darling. Step fully into her. I shook. The weight of those words pressed on me like stone. Step fully into her. But what if she wasn't me? What if moving forward meant losing everything I had ever been, memories, identity, self? Mia's hand tightened around mine, warm and grounding. Alex, look at me. Not the mirror. Me. You're not your mother's experiment. You're you. Whatever that looks like. Her eyes, fierce and pleading, anchored me. Adrenaline surged again, a mix of fear, exhilaration, and something intoxicating I didn't want to name. I realized then that this choice wasn't about the body, the dress, or the hormones. It was about reclaiming agency. About deciding who I would be in a situation where every other decision had been made for me. Mom's gaze softened, almost mocking. You hesitate because you still cling to the past. But the past is gone. She is who you are now. I could feel it, the thrill, the danger, the alluring pull of the transformation. My reflection smiled back, seductive, commanding, almost daring me to surrender. And yet, Mia's hand reminded me of another path. Choice. Love. Connection. Reality. I stepped back from the mirror and finally met her eyes. I can't let her define me, I whispered. Not entirely. I have to choose who I am. Mom's expression flickered, just for a moment, a crack in her certainty. Do you think you have a choice? She asked, soft but sharp. Yes, I said, voice trembling, but steady. I will embrace part of this. What felt right to me, this new self, was mine alone. I wouldn't let anyone else claim it. Not her, not Mom, not anyone. Relief washed over Mia, softening the tension in her eyes, and she gave me a faint, fragile smile. That small acknowledgement was enough. I drew a deep breath and faced the mirror again. The reflection staring back was undeniably beautiful, feminine, delicate, but now I saw me behind it. Not just the version my mother had sculpted, but Alex, a new Alex, forged from fear, desire, and sheer determination. Mom's confident calm flickered ever so slightly, her hands twitching. You'll regret this, she murmured. Maybe, I admitted, voice steady, but at least it's my choice. The moment hung heavy, suspended like a held breath, and I felt a surge of power ripple through me. Exhilaration and relief collided, raw and dizzying. My body was still shifting, curves softening, voice settling into its new timbre, but now I directed it. I chose the heels, the dress, the way I moved through space, the way I presented myself to the world. Mom's control ended at the door, my agency had returned. Mia stepped closer, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. You're still you, she whispered. And I love you for it. Tears blurred my vision. Part of me wanted to collapse, to laugh, to scream all at once. The fear, betrayal, thrill, and acceptance swirled inside me like a storm finally breaking. Mom stepped back, slowly realizing the dynamic had shifted. She had influenced my body, yes, had orchestrated the physical transformation, but she hadn't conquered my mind. My choices, my identity, my agency remained mine. And that realization, subtle yet electric, marked the turning point. I looked at Mia, then at my reflection. I wasn't a victim of manipulation. I was a survivor. I could embrace this new body without surrendering my selfhood. The reflection smiled, not a stranger anymore, but me. Adrenaline receded, leaving my body trembling but alive. My curves were sharper, my skin softer, my voice gentler, but now I chose how to inhabit it, how to live in it. And in that choice, I found freedom. Mom lingered briefly, her gaze sharp and calculating, muttering something about patience and future plans before finally leaving. Her presence no longer held power over me. Mia wrapped her arms around me, grounding me. You did it, she whispered. You found yourself. And you're still Alex. I closed my eyes, letting her warmth anchor me. For the first time since this entire transformation began, a fragile piece of peace settled within me. Fear and tension hadn't disappeared, they never would, but I had survived the storm. More importantly, I had claimed my identity deliberately, on my own terms. The mirror now reflected a mixture of old and new, of fear and thrill, past and possibility. I was no longer just Alex, no longer just my mother's design. I was something entirely my own. As evening settled into quiet, I realized the true transformation hadn't been physical at all. It was the courage to choose. In the days that followed, the apartment became neutral territory, a space between three worlds, my mother's controlling shadow, Mia's fearful but unwavering love, and my own fragile, shifting self. And in that space, I finally began to live for me. Each morning, I stood before the mirror, studying myself like a map still being drawn. The lines of my face, the gentle curves forming where there hadn't been any before, the quiet elegance creeping into the way I moved, it was all unfamiliar, yet undeniably mine. I was no longer just who I had been, but not entirely someone else either. The reflection didn't frighten me anymore. It questioned me. It asked who I was becoming and whether I was brave enough to answer. Mia stayed close through it all. She looked tired, worn by worry, but her eyes never hardened. She had witnessed every crack in me, the nights where panic clawed at my chest, and the others where excitement surged so strongly it scared me just as much. She hadn't left. Some nights she held me while I shook with fear. Other nights, it was the strange, electric joy of discovery that left me trembling. "You're changing so fast," she murmured one evening, gently tucking my hair behind my ear. "But you're still you, right? Somewhere in there." I nodded, though doubt lingered. "I think so," I whispered. "Some days it feels like I'm losing him. Other days it feels like I'm finally meeting her." Her smile wavered, eyes shining. "Then we'll find her together," she said. "And we'll keep part of him too. Always." My mother's presence never truly left. Even after she walked out that last afternoon, her influence lingered like thunder after lightning. Every unexpected call, every carefully worded message reminded me of her expectations, and of the dangerous pull I'd felt toward surrendering to them. One night, while I was alone trying on a new dress, Mia came in quietly. She didn't speak at first. She just looked at me. When she finally did, her voice cracked. "You're beautiful." Then, after a pause, "I just don't know if I'm ready for the world to see you like this." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "Neither am I. But I can't disappear anymore. Not from myself. Not from anyone." She stepped closer and took my hands. "Then we'll face it together. Whatever comes. Alex, or her. You're still the person I love." Her words grounded me, but the tension never fully eased. My mother's shadow remained, and the outside world was still waiting, unaware, unprepared. I wondered what friends would say. Coworkers. Neighbors. And I wondered how much of the past I could carry forward without suffocating under it. The emotional weight was relentless. Every stranger's glance felt loaded. Every reflection in a storefront window or passing car reminded me of the split inside me. And every conversation with Mia became a careful balancing act between comfort and fear. Then my phone rang. My mother. "I see you've settled into your new life," she said smoothly, almost proudly. "Don't forget, the world will notice soon. You'll have to decide how far you're willing to go." The call ended, but her words stayed behind like a spark near dry grass. Part of me wanted to give in completely, to embrace the transformation without restraint. Another part burned with defiance, desperate to prove that this was my life, my body, my decision. I stared at the dark screen, heart racing, knowing the next choice I made would change everything. Mia's fingers tightened around mine. "We'll figure this out," she murmured, her voice low and steady. "Together." No one gets to take your choices from you. I nodded, gripping her presence like a lifeline, though I knew deep down the real struggle was far from over. Mom's shadow still lingered. The transformation, the fear, the exhilaration, they were all simmering beneath the surface, waiting. For the first time, I truly felt the weight of what I had endured. The physical changes were only half the story. The true battle had been the emotional turbulence, the terror of rejection, the intoxicating thrill of discovering a new self, and the fight to reclaim control over my own life. That was the climax. And somehow, I had survived it. The mirror reflected me now, neither entirely Alex nor completely someone else, but a delicate fusion of both. A fragile equilibrium, balanced on the edge of fear and acceptance. Mia brushed a soft kiss across my forehead. "You've come this far," she whispered. "And we'll face whatever comes next, together." I closed my eyes, letting her words anchor me. The storm hadn't ended. It had only shifted. Even so, I felt something new, a quiet, fragile peace. I perched on the edge of the bed, the evening light spilling through the blinds, soft and golden. For the first time, the stranger in the mirror didn't feel so alien. The curves, the softened angles, the delicate hands, they were mine. A version of Alex I had fought, feared, and finally learned to embrace. Mia sat beside me, her presence steady, unwavering. "I can't imagine how hard this has been," she said softly. I exhaled, the weight of every memory and fear pressing into my chest. Part of me is exhilarated. Part of me is terrified, I admitted. But for the first time, I feel like it's my choice. Not Mom's. Not anyone else's. Mine. She squeezed my hand gently. "And I'll be here. Every step of the way, no matter what." But even in that fragile serenity, Mom's influence lingered. Her final words echoed in my mind, "Time for the final step. Don't disappoint me." What that step meant remained a mystery. Yet I knew I had survived the most intense part of the transformation, endured her manipulation, and claimed a small, vital piece of agency for myself. Later, when night draped itself over the apartment, the tension returned. Shadows shifted unnaturally, reflections whispered, and every creak felt like a warning. Then came a soft, hesitant knock. Mia froze beside me. "Who?" I shook my head, heart hammering. "I don't know." Every nerve on edge, I crept to the door. Through the peephole, I saw a package resting on the welcome mat. No note, no hint of its sender. My chest tightened. Mom? Or something else? A test, a warning, a trap? Hands trembling, I lifted the package and carried it inside. Mia followed silently, eyes wide and searching. I tore it open, and inside lay a simple envelope, unassuming and heavy with possibility. I unfolded the letter, and my chest tightened. My pulse raced, my hands trembling as the words sank in. "The real challenge begins now. Are you ready to face the world, or will you hide behind what you've already become?" M. I dropped it, breath catching in my throat. Mom. Of course it was her. But what did it mean? What was she planning next? A chill ran down my spine, and for a moment, I felt trapped between fear and curiosity. Mia's hand rested on my arm, warm and steady. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," she whispered. I nodded, clinging to her presence, though every instinct screamed that the suspense was far from over. The transformation wasn't finished. The world outside was waiting, and so was Mom. I glanced at the mirror one last time for the night. My reflection looked alive, confident, delicate, but it carried an edge now. A question. A dare. The face staring back seemed to challenge me. "Are you ready?" I swallowed hard, heart hammering. I think I am," I murmured, though the words felt fragile. In that moment, the apartment seemed to stretch and breathe around me. Mia by my side, the letter crumpled on the floor, and the stranger in the mirror, all of it was a snapshot of tension and possibility. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Outside, the world continued, oblivious. Inside, everything had shifted. My body, my mind, my identity, all balanced precariously on the edge of revelation. Mom had planted the seeds. Mia offered support. And I held the power to shape what came next. Would I fully step into this new self? Would Mom's next move upend everything I'd claimed? Could Mia accept me as I was, the strange fusion of past and present, Alex and the version I had fought to embrace? My reflection stared back at me, fear and exhilaration entwined in every curve, every softened line. The apartment was silent now, but it wasn't peaceful. The quiet carried the weight of all that had happened, all that could come. I sat on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, eyes locked on the mirror. The stranger there was me, yet not entirely me, a delicate balance of fear, desire, and resilience, shaped by manipulation and choice alike. Mia sat beside me, her hand gripping mine tightly. "You've survived so much," she whispered. "And yet the next step is still out there." I nodded, unable to find words. The letter on the floor seemed to hum with promise and threat alike, a countdown to whatever Mom had in store. The truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore, not completely. The transformation had penetrated beyond the physical. It had seeped into my thoughts, my habits, my emotions. Every glance in the mirror reminded me, part of me had surrendered, part had resisted, and part was still undecided. I picked up the letter again. The words burned into my mind, "The real challenge begins now. Are you ready to embrace the world? Or will you hide behind what you've already become?" Mom's presence lingered like a shadow, pressing against every choice I had made. But Mia's warmth anchored me. She leaned against my shoulder, quiet and steady. "Whatever she plans, whatever the world sees, I'll stay with you," she said. My pulse surged. Outside, life went on, unaware. Every passerby, every distant car could witness the new me, or threaten the fragile balance I'd carved. The thrill of exposure tangled with the fear of judgment, creating a tension I couldn't escape. My eyes returned to the mirror, and the question remained, silent but piercing, "Are you ready?" The reflection in the mirror held me captive. She was there, the new me, smiling softly, poised, confident, undeniably beautiful. But behind those eyes lingered Alex, wary, questioning, unsettled. Who truly held the reins now? Fear, desire, or my own will? The question throbbed in my chest, relentless. A soft click echoed from the apartment door. My heart jumped. No one entered. The sound alone was enough to make me flinch. The tension in the room thickened. Mom's influence was everywhere, her seeds planted, sprouting in ways I hadn't anticipated. Mia's hand tightened around mine. "You don't have to face this alone," she said, steady and unwavering. "Step by step, we'll figure it out together." I nodded, letting her reassurance anchor me. Fear still lingered, thrill still pulsed through me, but for the first time, I realized something crucial: I had a choice. How to live as the new me, how to honor the remnants of Alex, and how to confront whatever came next. The letter on the floor lay unopened, a silent, taunting reminder of Mom's reach, and of the challenges yet to come. The suspense had become intoxicating, a current running through every thought. I glanced at Mia, her expression fierce, resolute. "Whatever comes, we face it together," I whispered. She gave the faintest nod, eyes bright with determination. The mirror reflected both of us now, fused into one image, love and fear, identity and change intertwined. And then, a flicker. A movement behind me, subtle and fleeting, too deliberate to be just a trick of my imagination. I spun, heart hammering, but the room was empty. Yet when I looked back at the mirror, the shadow remained, ghostly, teasing, unresolved. Was it Mom? A new challenge waiting to strike? Or merely my mind, stretched taut from days of tension and transformation? The questions hung, unanswered, each one sharper than the last. Would I embrace this new self fully? Would Mom's next step push me past my limits? Could Mia and I navigate the storm together, or would the transformation demand sacrifices I wasn't ready to make? The answers were unknown. The suspense was unbearable. And that, dear viewers, is where you come in. What would you do if you were Alex? Step into the new identity, claw back the old, or forge a delicate balance between both? Comment below. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and prepare for the next chapter, because the tension is far from over, and trust me, it's going to push you to the edge. The screen cuts to black, leaving a heartbeat hanging in the air. Viewers sit on the edge, breaths caught, minds swirling with questions. The story hasn't ended, it's only opening its next, electrifying chapter.